Most people are not average because they lack talent. They are average because they were never told the truth about the invisible system quietly running their lives. Every single day, millions of people wake up, follow the same routine, scroll through the same apps, complain about the same problems, and then go to sleep, only to repeat it all over again. It feels like life. But it is not living. It is a loop. And the terrifying part, most people never even notice they are trapped inside it. This is not about motivation. This is about a system, a deeply wired, carefully constructed pattern of behavior, environment, and belief that was never designed to help the average person rise above the crowd. And once someone understands how it works, everything changes. The comfort trap, how the system gets built. The first pillar of this system is comfort. The human brain is not wired for greatness. It is wired for survival. It craves certainty, familiarity, and the path of least resistance. Every time a person chooses the easy option over the right one, the brain registers it as a win, a reward, a safe move. Over time, this becomes a habit, and habits become identity.
Made the decision to walk through the gate of forgiveness, to grace, just as Christ did on the cross. He suffered terribly, and he was broken by it.
This is exactly what happened with someone like Jim Carrey before he became one of the most iconic comedians in the world. Before the fame, before the massive paychecks, Carrey lived in a van with his family. Life was uncomfortable, unpredictable, scary. But instead of retreating to the safety of a regular 9-to-5 life, he leaned straight into the discomfort. He drove to the top of Mulholland Drive at night and visualized his future success. He wrote himself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered and kept it in his wallet for years. He refused to let comfort become his ceiling. Most people do the opposite. They take the stable job they hate because it pays the bills. They stay in the city they grew up in because change feels overwhelming. They avoid learning new skills because being a beginner feels embarrassing. The comfort trap does not announce itself. It simply makes everything unfamiliar feel like a threat. And slowly, the world a person could have had shrinks down to the world they already know. Psychology confirms this pattern. The brain's default state is to protect what it already has. It is not naturally designed to chase what it could have. So when growth demands discomfort, and it always does, the average person backs away. They wait for the right moment. But the right moment never comes. That waiting becomes the average life. Social circles play a massive role in keeping this trap locked in place. Studies in behavioral science have repeatedly shown that habits, income levels, and mindsets tend to match the people someone spends the most time with. If the 5 closest people in a person's life are comfortable being average, chances are high that person will be too. Not because they agreed to it, but because the environment quietly normalized it. The fear machine, what keeps people locked in. The second pillar of the system is fear. Not fear of the dark or fear of spiders, but a far more subtle and damaging kind. The fear of judgment, the fear of failure, the fear of being seen trying and still falling short. This kind of fear is a master manipulator. It disguises itself as logic. It sounds like, now is not the right time, or I am not qualified enough yet, or what if I embarrass myself? It feels like wisdom. But it is paralysis wearing a suit. Oprah Winfrey is one of the most powerful examples of someone who refused to let this fear win. She was fired from her first television job as a news anchor in Baltimore. The producers said she was too emotional and too attached to the stories she covered. By conventional logic, that moment should have been the beginning of an average life. Instead, it became a redirection. Oprah did not interpret the failure as proof that she was not enough. She used it as a signal that she was meant for something different. Today, she is one of the most influential media personalities in history. Most people, however, interpret failure the opposite way. When something goes wrong, the internal narrative quickly shifts to, "See, I knew I was not good enough." This link between self-worth and performance is one of the most dangerous components of the average system. Because if a person believes that failing at something means they are a failure as a person, then they will do everything possible to avoid trying in the first place. That avoidance becomes their life. The fear machine also thrives on comparison. Social media has amplified this to an almost destructive level. The average person scrolls through carefully curated highlight reels of other people's best moments and measures their own messy middle against someone else's polished outcome. The comparison game does not just hurt confidence, it redirects energy. Every hour spent consuming someone else's story is an hour not spent building one's own. The system benefits from this distraction. An occupied, insecure, and fearful mind rarely rebels. It rarely questions. It rarely dares to build something different, and so the loop continues. The belief system, the real root of averageness, the third and most powerful pillar of the system is belief. Specifically, the deeply held and often unconscious beliefs that a person carries about what they are capable of and what they deserve. These beliefs do not appear out of thin air. They are installed early. A child told repeatedly that money is hard to come by grows into an adult who unconsciously self-sabotages financial opportunities. A teenager who was discouraged from dreaming too big becomes an adult who plays it safe in every career decision they make. The messaging may have come from parents, teachers, society, or culture, but the effect is the same. The ceiling is set before the person is even old enough to push against it. He faced bullying, family tension, and a world that offered limited pathways for the kind of ambitions he carried. By the time he was a teenager, he had already decided that the rules of the world were not fixed, they were negotiable. He taught himself computer programming at age 10, sold his first software at 12, and eventually left for North America with almost nothing in his pocket. The belief that the ceiling could be moved was not something the system gave him. It was something he chose to hold on to despite the system. Most people never make that choice. They absorb the beliefs handed to them and treat them as facts. They assume that, because something has always been a certain way in their life, it will always remain that way. This is called a fixed mindset, the belief that talent, intelligence, and potential are set in stone rather than developed through effort and experience. The system reinforces this belief everywhere. School grades label children early. Job titles define adult worth. Salary ranges tell people what their time is worth before they have even negotiated. And all of these signals quietly whisper the same message: know your place, stay in your lane, do not reach for what was not assigned to you. Breaking out of this requires something that the system rarely teaches: deliberate self-awareness. It requires a person to examine the stories they tell themselves and ask whether those stories are true, or whether they are just old programming running unchallenged. It requires choosing discomfort over ease, long-term growth over short-term safety, and internal validation over the endless hunger for external approval. The system that keeps most people average is not some shadowy conspiracy. It is simply the sum of a comfort-chasing brain, a fear-driven culture, and inherited beliefs that go unquestioned for a lifetime. It is powerful because it is invisible. It is effective because it feels completely normal. But normal and inevitable are two very different things. They are exceptional because they saw the system for what it was, and then chose something harder. Something worth choosing. Most people have the same choice in front of them. The only real question is whether they are willing to take it.